Hello, everyone. We've got a very special Locked On Canadiens tonight coming to you after Montreal has defeated Detroit 3-2 in overtime on the back of a Cole Caufield overtime winner. Surprise, surprise. We're going to break down the show, the new lines, and what's going on around the NHL and more inside today's episode.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 951 of Locked On Canadiens. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That is Jase medical.com. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matla. I am not alone tonight. However, we have a very special episode planned for you, and I'm going to bring in our guest right now, and he is the host of Game Over Montreal. This is my former managing editor, Andrew Berkshire. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me after the game here, and I'm glad that we have a win to recap here for the Montreal Canadiens tonight.
Pleasure to be here with you, Scott. As always, forgive my mustache. I apologize. It is Movember. Doing it for fun. Don't know how much longer I'm going to keep it. We'll see.
I was going to say, as Andrew said on Game Over tonight, he feels a little bit more like Caillou with a mustache.
Big Caillou energy.
Which is just a very weird combination of things. You look like one of those roughnecks in like every biker bar fight scene that tries to start something with like the Terminator and gets thrown through a window.
Literally, I have these black running gloves that I really like for driving in the winter, and I was putting them on, and I was just wearing a t-shirt, but I was like, I don't want my hands to be cold in the wheel when I was going to pick up the kids the other day. And with the new like arm tattoos, and I put on the gloves, I was like, I'm a biker now. I've never ridden a motorcycle, but I was just like, I'm bald. I have a crazy facial hair. I have a tattoo on my arm. I have the black gloves. I feel like I should be in Sons of Anarchy right now.
We're going to get you a leather Game Over Montreal like biker cut to wear around when you ride your bike and everything in the spring when people aren't trying to run you off the road. I don't know how much one of those costs, but so don't hold me to that. However, with Andrew joining me here, we have a great show because one, I am not going to yell and scream about how bad the Canadiens have played like I did earlier this week. Thank you for the leeway. I was out of town yesterday. I was doing a work thing where to highlight my day is I drove to Albany on the other side of New York from Buffalo, tapped a keg, filled 30 crowlers of beer, and then had to drive back to Buffalo in the same day. I rolled in, had like a bite of a sandwich, and then fell asleep immediately. So I am glad that we are here on Thursday night, and the Canadiens defeat the Detroit Red Wings 3-2 in overtime in what was not I don't want to call it not an exciting game because it had plenty of good moments, but a strong reset for the Montreal Canadiens here. Everything looks solid. We'll talk about the new lines in our second segment, but a strong showing led by Caden Primo between the pipes and Mike Matheson looking like Mike Matheson again. And Andrew, that's as he goes, that's how this team goes right now, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny that Detroit was almost in the same situation. They mentioned on the broadcast that I think they allowed like the first 5 goals against the Rangers in their last game. So the Canadiens were down 4-0. The Red Wings were down 5-0 or 5-something anyway. And neither team were able to complete the comeback. I think they both ended up losing 5-3, if I'm not mistaken. So both teams came into tonight really cautious. I think there wasn't a lot of risk taking off the rush, things like that. Puck placement was a big deal. Sticks and lanes. Both teams were very, very cagey about defending the middle of the ice. There was very few high danger chances in this one, but like you said, it wasn't a boring game, but it was very much a chess match game. It was a fast game that was played mostly along the perimeter, but had there enough moments of excitement and great saves and scrambly moments that it kept your attention.
And I look at this too because I don't know how good Derek Lalonde is as an NHL coach because I'm not very good at analyzing NHL coaches, apparently, outside of knowing Michel Therrien was not a good NHL coach. In that Martin St. Louis being able to come off of a couple of games where his defense was a theory and a concept more than something in physical practice in those games is the sign of somebody who is learning who is still a very young NHL coach there. The defense, everything was simplistic in the way that they did things. It was smart, snappy passes, quick decisions, but not rash decisions. Everything was done with a purpose and everything was done with pace without rushing everything. And this is a young team. And we know that sometimes players tend to, and for younger players, they want to rush things because like, oh, this is doing well. Let me take that next step. They played a contained game that was conservative without shelling, but still aggressive enough that Detroit couldn't just sit at the blue line or deny entries or deny exits, in that they had to adjust in game here. And a lot of players stepped up in ways that allowed them to have the best games that we've seen from them in a while. Slafkovsky was a lot smarter with the puck, would have liked to, maybe get a point or two there, but I thought he played well. Suzuki and Caufield obviously were very good. Suzuki gets a power play goal. Cole Caufield gets the overtime winner after just the most bizarre penalty I've seen in my entire life. And I don't want to talk about anything else except for this right now, because I've never seen a goaltender just hold on to somebody who hadn't crashed into them in the crease first and just hugging his stick so much that it prevented his team with an odd man rush the other way from probably having a chance to win the game against Caden Primo, who was outstanding. I don't know what James Reimer was thinking in that he just held on to Cole Caufield's stick and just didn't let go. And then the refs called it and they got praised for making a very easy call. I've seen a lot of weird things, but that might be up there at the top of just dumb, weird things I've seen in a game played on knife shoes at, 20 miles an hour every night.
Yeah. I wonder if Reimer saw, or like the shift before that, Suzuki had the puck in the Canadian zone and Ben Sherratt just came up from behind and full on slew footed him right next to the boards. Like, I was worried that he was going to actually get hurt. It was pretty, like, a really, really dangerous play. And I was pretty shocked that the refs didn't call that, but they weren't calling much at the end of that game. And then Reimer was, the refs gave him like 5 seconds, 5 full seconds holding Caufield's stick before finally they were like, we got to call it. Like, this is too dumb. Yeah, the refs gave him so much time to make the decision to let go. And I'm assuming the ref also yelled, let go. And he just didn't. And eventually they were like, listen, we don't want to do this, but we got to make the call. And
it's like
they had to do it.
I could understand that it's like, oh, he thought he had the puck, but he very clearly played the puck forward.
Yes.
He skated into Caufield, dropping the puck, and then was just like, I might have screwed this up. Okay, I'm just going to do this and hold on for dear life and hope for the best. And just, I don't know what else you could expect out of that, because then you put a Cole Caufield, who you've now annoyed, on the ice in overtime. And that overtime winner is a thing of beauty. And not just because Cole Caufield can shoot the puck ridiculously well. He put on a move on Moritz Seider that put a very good defenseman. I know the phrase is on skates, but you get what I'm saying. Just put him in a blender and then just roofed it. He's lethal when you give him that opportunity. And I know people are like 5-on-5 goals and this or that. Cole Caufield scores goals when the game is on the line. And it's hard to top that feeling if you're the Montreal Canadiens right now.
I think that's the biggest thing about Cole Caufield that sticks out for me is the time and place, right? It's tough enough to be an impact player for the Montreal Canadiens and deal with the pressure from the fans, from the media. It's crazy. But then you add on top these big moments. And like, yeah, it's overtime in a regular season game in a rebuild year, but he just finds a way in those big moments consistently. We saw it in the playoffs against Vegas when Robin Lehner was like, yeah, this guy is predictable. He's just going to shoot here. And then Caufield's like, I'm going to shoot exactly where you said, and it doesn't matter. I'm still going to score. Like, that's what he basically did tonight too. Like, he tucked that puck just under the bar, right in the corner. Like when when you're watching it the first time, I didn't even see where the puck went in. I just saw the puck coming out of the net on the other side. And I find that happens a lot with Caufield's goals. He just gets such velocity and precision that it's like, well, I don't know where that went in because there was no hole. He just finds it. You know, it's really incredible. He has such a nose for it. I guess the hands for it, but he continues to impress me. And the fact that he's doing this while shooting at like half the rate, not in shot rate, but in shooting percentages last year, this guy, I still think he's going to score 50 this year.
And here's the thing is the Canadiens changed up their lines tonight. He was not playing with Nick Suzuki at 5-on-5 tonight. Andrew and I are going to touch on the new lines, what we think worked, what we might change, and that's all coming up in our next segment. But today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Park View Advance. As a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind, but that doesn't mean you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Park View Advance has helped businesses secure working capital from $5,000 to $1.5 million. Parkview Advance can improve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. We invite the many entrepreneurs that are locked on NHL fans to learn more by calling us at 203-675 or go to parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. That's Parkview Advance, helping businesses with their working capital. Just go to parkviewadvance.com. Today's show is also brought to you by the folks at Collective. If you run a solo small business, you are an army of one, but you still need a CPA, a bookkeeper, a separate payroll solution, and more. Let Collective take care of the paperwork while you take care of your business. It is the #1 financial solution for freelancers, contractors, self-employed entrepreneurs that let you focus on your passion and not your paperwork. Collective knows that if your business makes over $80,000 a year, you will find the most value from their services. Just let Collective handle all the paperwork you dread, like corporate formation, compliance, taxes, bookkeeping, accounting, and even payroll. The best part is it's just a fraction of the cost of a CPA. Join the thousands of solo entrepreneurs who saved an average of $10,000 per year on taxes with their structure. So right now, Collective is offering a free 1 month and no onboarding fee when you go to collective.com/locked-on today and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's a $550 value for free when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them we sent you. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. The Habs beat the Red Wings 3-2 in overtime. They are now tied with the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Atlantic standings, and we will get to what is going on around the NHL in the final segment today. But the biggest thing is, Andrew and I were talking before the show because Andrew had me on Game Over and came on here so graciously for me as the night gets a little bit later here. They went with new lines tonight. Suzuki and Caufield are split. Anderson, a new hook up to the top line. Caufield on the second line with Dvorak and Slavkovsky, the old dudes who are an old line of Pearson, Monahan, and Gallagher, and then the fourth line all together. And it was a thing that we looked at and went, this is either going to go terribly because we know Anderson and New Hook with our, I don't want to say defensively inept, but sometimes a little flighty in that regard. And then everything seemed to work out. I haven't looked at what the expected goals were at 5-on-5 tonight, but the last time I checked, Suzuki, Newhook, and Anderson were crushing the Red Wings, depending on which source you were going through. And Andrew, I know you're a little bit more statistically inclined than I am, but was that still the case at the end of the night?
Overall, they definitely outplayed the Wings. They were like 55% plus across the board at 5-on-5. So they were definitely the better team tonight. I think what stuck out to me the most about the new lines is it seemed like, I know after the game, St. Louis was talking about like Suzuki and Caufield and saying like, oh, distance can make the heart grow fonder, like a little separation never hurt anyone. And it just made me think like, this morning, St. Louis came into the locker room and he was basically like Pam in The Office when she finds out that Michael was dating her mom. She's like, you need to stop this. And Suzuki and Caufield like, we're going to love each other even harder now. Like they both scored tonight with each other on the ice. Like they played well without each other, but they did all their big moments together anyway, even though they were split up. I love those two guys. Nicole, they're the best.
I'm just imagining like Martin St. Louis telling like, I'm splitting you and Cole up, and then Nick just standing like in the rafters of like the Little Caesars Arena, like 80s Sting with the crow paint, just looking down at the ice. Like, how could you do this to me? He's gonna drop down out of the rafters and just hit someone with a baseball bat, which he more or less did with his power play goal tonight. And then Caufield, like we talked about before, just sealed it. And I don't know long term if this is the solution for the lines. Obviously, you're still missing Kirby Dach in this lineup, which is an irreplaceable part until the Oilers give you something hilarious for Jake Allen in a couple of weeks. But it gives them options now. It is not just Suzuki and Caufield are the only option. I think Anderson had good chances tonight, still just absolutely snake bitten. That chance at the side of the net where it's open and he just Rene Borks it off the post is... It's a culmination of his season, is that he probably should have a few goals by now, and he's been unlucky. But he played well. Newhook is someone that I'm still learning a lot about because I don't totally know what his fit and vibe is as a player. I know what Josh Anderson is. Josh Anderson is straight ahead, go, score goals with speed. Newhook seems to have parts of that with some shiftiness in his game. I do think that Alex Newhook is a good solution with Nick Suzuki. We know that he is not a center at this point, but if they can get those guys going a little bit, along with that third line, and obviously Caufield is what he is, it takes some of the pressure off of Dvorak and Slavkovsky and might give them some easier matchups in games there. And we're going to start seeing that cascading, the trickle-down economics of goal scoring, except this one might actually work and not...
This one's real.
This one's real and won't cripple a generation of potential homeowners. So I still want to see Jesse Olonen back in the lineup, though. Joel Armia has been fine, and Michael Pezzetta is Michael Pezzetta, and Jake Evans is a great fourth-line center. I just really want to see that speed and offensive upside back in this lineup because he's someone I think should be on the power play, on that second power play unit, and just adds a little bit more than Armia does in terms of offensive panache to a team that sometimes could use that in their bottom six.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, watching that fourth line, they had really strong underlying numbers this game and the last game against Tampa. They were like the best line, but I watched them and I'm like, Jake Evans, he's doing great stuff. He's working his tail off. And Michael Pezzetta, man, hardest working player in the league, brings energy, nose for the net, hits guys constantly. And Army is there. That's the most kind thing I can say. Like once in a while, he makes a good support play, but like when he's carrying the puck, how many times can one guy get pickpocketed from behind? Like there's just no pace to his game. And I think he had a good game. His first game after being called back up, I think he scored that one as well. And it seemed like after that, he's like, I'm fine. Like, you're on the precipice of not being an NHL player, man. Can you skate?
And that's exactly it. Is like, I don't want to be mean to Joel Armia because I don't know if it's still like, I thought he was suffering from long COVID for a little bit, just the way that his pace, he's never been a fast player, but he used to be so much more efficient than he was currently at. And I'm hoping there's a team that just wants a stabilizing presence because I don't think he's a bad player. I just think he's one that doesn't fit the makeup of this team right now. And with Corey Perry, who could play at that similar pace with Smarts, everything kind of worked out. I don't know if it's showcasing or what Kent Hughes is cooking, and I'm sure he's got something up his sleeves because he's Kent Hughes and that's what he does. I'm intrigued to see how they shuffle lines around a little bit this weekend. Boston on Saturday and then Vancouver on Sunday, I believe. Not exactly two easy back-to-back games, and Vancouver's shooting the lights out and Boston is Boston. The opportunities are there, and we're going to see, can they match up if they keep Suzuki and Caufield separate there? I don't know if the Bruins are getting Charlie McAvoy back for this game or not. If they're not, I think the opportunity is there to take some advantage of the Bruins defense right now, and having Caufield and Suzuki on separate lines is part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something that's advantageous. I think the Bruins are such an annoying team because for the second straight season, frankly, they're not great. They're a good team, but they're just not great. They're currently 13th in the league in expected goals for percentage. Same situation. Like they're actually being outshot right now overall. at even strength, and then they're just PDO gods. Like their goalies just save everything. Their shooting percentage is always sky high. Like I was looking because someone on Twitter actually asked earlier today, for an easy explanation of what like PDO is, just shooting percentage plus save percentage team wide smashed together. It should add up to about 100. There's variance between teams based on talent level, but generally, if you're above 102 with your shooting percentage and save percentage smashed together, you're probably going to regress down to 1,000. And if you're below 98, you should probably you'll eventually regress the other way up. The Bruins right now are at 103.6, and last year we're about the same. Like, how do you lose Patrice Bergeron and still be PDO gods? Like, their center line might be the worst in the entire NHL, and yet they're still doing this thing.
He can't keep getting away with this.
That's exactly how I feel. It's like Jesse Pinkman, like looking at all the data. I'm like, how is this happening? It doesn't make sense. But they're frustrating.
It's unfair, and maybe they'll have a regression against the Habs. That would be super dope and fun because I haven't had Bruins fans angry in my mention. No, that's a lie last year because apparently AJ Greer did nothing wrong when he split open Mike Hoffman's face. So, this is actually a perfect transition because there's a lot going around the NHL right now. The Toilet Bowl is currently going on between the Sharks and Oilers. We're going to check in on that, all the rumors around the NHL and everything, and that's all coming up in our final segment. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. We are wrapping up the show tonight. If you have mailbag questions, I am pushing that probably to Tuesday next week because 2 weekend games, 3 up and 3 down this weekend. So I am going to need everybody to please just tweet us at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com. All right, Andrew. It's currently the Toilet Bowl is happening. We got a score update. It was 0-0 when we left game over to come record this show. Do we have an update on that right now?
We sure do. It is currently 1-0 Sharks. Being outshot, I think it's like 14-6. But the Oilers, you know what? The Oilers this year remind me of the Oilers before McDavid, where it's like, oh, this is the year. Even early McDavid. And it was like they find ways to fail spectacularly. They're very clearly a good team. Their goalies can't save anything.
You hate to see it. And it's like, I know everyone's like, Jake Allen's going to go to the Oilers. And I'm like, it makes too much sense for it to not be the case. And any trade there would mean Jack Campbell likely has to come back in the deal to make the cap hit work. To which I say, I don't want anything to do with that because they can't even flip him for anything because he's been basically abysmal since Brendan Gallagher scored on him in Game 7 in 2021. And Kyle Dubas made a lot of mistakes. Jack Campbell was not one of them for them because I'm imagining this Leafs team with Jack Campbell in net, and oh boy, would that be even funnier at this point. I know.
Like, do you remember, like, the Leafs fans are really upset when he went to free agency, and then he signed that contract with Edmonton, and everybody was quiet. They're like, you know what? I'm gonna stop crapping on Dubas now because that's not
anybody.
It's not gonna happen. You know what? Jake Allen, probably his contract is too tough to fit for Edmonton. They're in such a cap crunch. I would not write off the idea of Sam Montembeault going there. I know the Canadiens like just recently said he wasn't going anywhere, but I don't believe he's the goalie of the future. I think right now of the goalies that they do have, Jacob Fowler is the closest to that. The fact that Caden Primo is not looking afraid of the NHL anymore, that's a huge change for the Canadiens in goal. You know, they probably don't want to be stuck where if one guy gets injured, you're going to Dobesh, but they kind of have no choice here. It's just the gap.
And that's the thing is my thought was that does Primo look like an NHL quality goaltender? Okay, cool. He's the one going. He's got another year on his contract. He's making like, I think just sub $1 million or something like that. That if he's an actual NHL goalie, you can probably get the most in a package for him if you're not trading Jake Allen at this point. But if he's also cheap and he's that good, you might as well keep him for your rebuilding team. It's a weird paradox for things. And if the Oilers lose this game, someone's getting fired, which I think will be absolutely. I'm sad this game isn't in Edmonton because I am so sure that there would be jerseys on the ice by the end of the second period.
Oh, did you see what happened to Artturi Lehkonen?
I heard he went into the boards head first and looked to not be doing great.
It's awful.
Oh,
it's
no.
awful, man. Apparently he's got full movement and control of his body at the hospital right now, but wow. I just, because we're doing around the NHL, I was looking and holy man, that just a complete freak collision.
I was listening to the Avs broadcast against the Devils the other night driving home, and I'm listening to the broadcast like Artturi Lehkonen, he's never been in the doghouse. They can it's not a demotion to the second line. It's everyone on the second line is getting promoted to playing with Artturi Lehkonen. I go, that is our boy.
Yep.
One of the most underrated Habs in the last 5 to 10 years there. And I miss him dearly. Glad he got his cup. It made sense to trade him at the time. I'm never not going to be upset that he's not a Canadian anymore though.
Same.
So speaking of around the league here then, and it was going to come to this sooner or later. The Canadiens and Leafs are tied for 5th place in the Atlantic standings. Habs fans are going, wow, we're tied with the Leafs. That's great. Leaf fans are going, we're tied with the Canadiens. I'm going to throw myself off the Gardner at this point. Every single one of Brad Treliving's off-season acquisitions has blown up in his face almost spectacularly at this point. Domi hasn't been very good or effective. He had a nice assist on Nick Robertson's goal last night. Tyler Bertuzzi, I know he scored, doesn't seem to fit anywhere. John Klingberg cannot defend, and Ryan Reeves is the fakest tough guy in the league. After Arborjack, I punked him in game 1. The summer of Brad is it's a dud so far.
To the autumn of bad. It's been rough. I mean, should we really be surprised that the guy that traded a first-round pick to get rid of Sean Monahan and then gave $1 billion to an older Nazem Kadri and bought high on Jonathan Huberdeau and then signed him to a ridiculous contract that under no circumstances did he ever deserve or earn, has been terrible for the Leafs in this first little bit as well. I guess we shouldn't, right? This is Brad Treliving, and maybe we could write off that the end of Calgary was a mess because Gaudreau wanted out and Tkachuk wanted out. But I don't know, man. You look at their drafting history, you look at all the moves that they've made. Talking to Peter and Audie, who do Game Over Calgary, when I was in Edmonton the other week for the Heritage Classic, they brought up that Calgary has won 1 playoff series since 2004. That's the most mid team in a league of mid teams. There's nothing happy there. That's why Calgary's fan base doesn't really care. There's nothing to get excited about. They know their team is mid.
It's kind of wild to me that they're that team. They're the Capitals without the Stanley Cup at this point, or the people cheering for someone on their team to win that cup. And there's no better time to really be holding one of their first round picks if you're the Canadiens. And I know it's likely not going to be this year's, but if this is a team that's going to blow it up, and I mean Rasmus Anderson, Noah Hannafin, I don't know if Lindholm didn't get extended in the offseason, correct? I know
I don't think so, no.
If they're going to blow it up, having their first round pick, not even this year, but for 25 or 26, which are unprotected, it's a pretty good thing to have in your pocket if you're Kent Hughes there and your team is heading in the opposite direction. And I guess the last thing around the league here to check in on is whatever the hell is happening in Ottawa, which swings from, wow, this is great, to, wow, this team has never played together a day in their lives. And I feel bad for Michael Andlauer, who got sold a false bill of goods going into this. Either that or he didn't check the receipt on his way in. But the Habs vibes in the Atlantic Division out of the Canadian teams that are there don't seem terrible. And it seems to go Vancouver, probably Winnipeg, and then the Habs fans in terms of Canadian teams. Yeah, which is a weird thing because Winnipeg is Winnipeg. They don't have an airport and it's freezing 9/10 of the year. And they're somehow very happy right now, which is a wild thing considering that team is constantly teetering on imploding upon itself.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, I think the Canadiens fans are among the happiest of all Canadian teams. It is a strange situation to be in, but yeah, Toronto's miserable. Ottawa, this is year 3 of the rebuild being over, and yet here we are. I really like a lot of the pieces in Ottawa. I really do. I don't know how they're losing so often because they're 5-7 with a +3 goal differential. What are you doing? I don't understand these guys.
I'm afraid that if Ottawa gets an actual NHL coach, they'll be good.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Out of teams in the
would you bet on it, Scott? Shane Pinto, White.
Anyways, here's the suspension news sponsored by, and I look at the Atlantic Division, I go, okay, Boston's got a very good coach. Don Granato's getting a lot of really good stuff out of the Sabres team there, even if they're struggling a little bit this year. Montreal with Martin St. Louis is rebuilding, so the expectations are low. But I look at the other coaches in this division and I go, Derek Lalonde, I don't know what you are. Detroit needs to be good sooner or later. Yes. I don't believe in Sheldon Keefe in the slightest. I don't believe in DJ Smith, and Paul Maurice is Paul Maurice.
Yeah.
At a certain point, if your elite talent doesn't buoy your team, it's a good thing for the Canadiens that Sheldon Keefe got extended and has come into the season and been like, what if I just play John Klingberg even more? It's not working.
He got a healthy scratch in their next game, I guess, on Friday. He's announced as a healthy scratch. So
stop icing Ryan Reeves then.
Yeah, I know. I think Sheldon Keefe is actually quite a good coach, but it's this weird situation where he is a fantastic regular season coach for the most part. They do good things. The underlying numbers are strong, but I think every single playoff series he's done, he's been drastically out-coached. He's almost like Bizarro World Michel Therrien, where Therrien is the worst coach ever in the regular season, but his preparation for the playoffs is actually quite good. And his teams often surprise in the playoffs. So I don't know what to think about Sheldon Keefe. Maybe he's just young and he needs to learn to keep it a little bit tighter to the chest in the playoffs and not get so emotional. But the Leafs, I think the biggest problem with the Leafs is that their big four are losers, to be frank, except for Nylander. Nylander is not. And Morgan Riley was great last playoffs too. But Matthews, Tavares, Marner, when push comes to shove and you need somebody to stick their face in front of a puck to deflect it in, bad.
It wilts.
Yeah.
And they're phenomenal players. This does not take away anything from any of them, but
oh yeah, Matthews is generational.
I was gonna say, it's they won a round and won one game, and it's you won 2 more games than you have before in the playoffs. You should have higher standards than that. And here's the thing is, by the time that I come back to record on Monday, the Habs might be in last place in the Atlantic for all I know. So I'm going to wrap up the show. Andrew, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and the folks at Game Over before we wrap up?
Yeah. You can search Andrew Berkshire on any social media of your choice. I'm on all of them now, unfortunately. I have to figure out how to handle all that. But you can also search Game Over Montreal on YouTube. Go to SDPN as well and subscribe there. Got our whole Game Over slate that covers all Canadian NHL teams. It's a fun year to be doing this, as always. So check us out.
Make sure you're following us on Twitter at @LO_Canadians. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. She'll be back next week. You can follow me at Scott Madlow. We are available wherever you get your daily podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify. And if you are watching on YouTube, thank you for subscribing. Tell all your friends and folks. We will see you all next time.